Hey NBA 2K MyLeague fans, I am back with another NBA 2K MyLeague video, and in this video we're going to talk about how many games you should play in your MyLeague files. I'm going to go over the settings and what they mean in terms of setting up your MyLeague with the number of games. I'm going to give you some ideas on how to play through your seasons, and then I'm going to share with you, of course, what I like to do, and then you can make your own decision on how you want to handle your MyLeague files. Hopefully these ideas will help you out. And if you're new to the channel, I'm Coach 2K. While you're here, hit that subscribe button, click the bell to get notified whenever I upload anything new, so you don't miss a single NBA 2K video that I put out. And while you're here, check out my NBA 2K MyLeague expansion series, and I'll put a link to the corner to that series, so be sure and check that out after you watch this video. All right, so with that, let's get started and talk about how many games you should play in your MyLeague files. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is your setup options and how you set up your MyLeague in the number of games that you want to set your file up for. And under the setup options, you're going to have this option for season length, and you're going to have a few options. The first one you've got is 14 games. The second one's 29 games. The third one's 58 games. And then you have the real life 82 game schedule. So let's talk about the difference between these. The first up is the 14 game schedule. And what this means is that you'll play only the teams in your conference. So for example, if I choose the Pacers, they're in the Eastern Conference. There are 15 teams in the Eastern Conference, and I'll play the other 14 of them during my season. Now, as far as the Western Conference teams, because I'm in the Eastern Conference, if I set it to 14 games, I'm not going to play anybody in the Western Conference under the 14 game schedule. So that's how 14 games works. The next option is 29 games, and in this case there's 30 teams in the league, and of course if I choose one of them, then there's only 29 left. So if you choose the 29 game option, then what that's going to mean is that you're going to face every other team in the league one time. The next option is 58 games, and that means if you played every team in the league twice, 29 times 2 is 58. You'll play each team twice, once at home and once away. And that's how they come up with the 58 games. Next up is 82 games. That's the real life schedule. That's the one I personally choose. I recommend you choose 82 games if you're going to be simming any of your games. That way you get stats over an entire season. Now, if you don't like the sim games, and you want to choose a season length like 14 games, 29, or 58, of course that's okay too. But if you want to have like stats for an entire season, the only way you're going to get that is if there's a full 82 games. So if you play like a 14 game season, well, at the end of the season, they're only going to have stats accumulated from 14 games. And if you care about accumulating records over time, then that's not going to be the best option for you. So personally, what I do is set it to 82 games, and then once in the file, you can decide how many games you want to actually play, and then you can sim the rest of them. So let's talk about that a little bit now that we've talked about the setup. All right, now once you got your MyLeague file set up with the number of games in the schedule that you want to have, the next thing you got to decide is, well, how many games do you want to actually play? Now, if you follow my suggestion of setting up 82 games in your season, that does give you some flexibility on how you go about it. So the first thing you could do is you could do what you could have done in the setup process, and that's choose either 14 games, 29 games, 58, or 82. So if you want to just play everybody in your conference and count that as your season, that's something that you could do. If you want to play everybody once, you could do that. And if you want to play everybody twice, home and away, you could do that as well. Or if you wanted to play like all 82 games, then you certainly have the flexibility to do that too. Another thing you could do is you could just play like one game per week. And if you go in, you count the number of weeks in a season, there are actually 26 weeks in a season. So you could play one game per week, whatever game appeals to you, and have like a 26 game season, and then just sim the rest. Now, another thing you could do if you wanted is you could just play the other teams in your division throughout the year. So the way the NBA schedule is set up, you play the other teams in your division 4 times, and so that would be a 16 game season, if you played everybody in your division and then sim the rest. So that's an option if you wanted to do it that way as well. Now, I've also heard of people doing other things like playing every third game. Maybe they start out and play the first 4 or 5 games of the year, and then they play a game once a week. And then sometimes people just sim the whole season to get to the playoffs. So I guess between all those, if you're short on time, probably the sweet spot for a season would probably be about between 14 and 16 games. And I would probably lean towards playing everybody in my conference or everybody in my division. I think playing everybody in the division would be a lot more fun. Now, if you want to play all 82 games, I mean, that would be the way to go, because you could really get into your MyLeague and really learn your team throughout the 82 game season. The only problem with that is time. It takes a long time to play an 82 game season, and so a lot of times people don't have the stomach for it. I know when we played the MyLeague online files, I mean, it was pulling teeth to get people to play 15 to 25 games an entire year. So a lot of how many games you're going to want to play in a year is going to be dependent on how many seasons you want to get through. But, you know, if you take 14, 15 games a month, that's a game every other day. That could get you through a season. And then, you know, you could play 8 to 10 seasons a year before the next game comes out if you wanted to. And that's not a bad setup. Once you've decided how you're going to play your regular season games, next step is to decide how you want to play your playoff games. Now, there are 4 rounds in the playoffs. If you swept every series, that means 4 games times 4 rounds is 16 games. That means the minimum number of games in the playoffs is 16 if you played every game and swept every series. But if every series went to 7 games, well, that's 7 games times 4 rounds, which is 28. So the playoffs can be anywhere between 16 games and 28 games, depending on how many games you win and lose. So essentially, that's another season or two in terms of regular season play. And so if I had to choose between playing more playoff games, I'd lean towards doing that because they're more exciting and there's more on the line. But what a lot of people choose to do is maybe play every other game. Sometimes people will just choose to play closeout games or elimination games. And in those cases, if you wanted to do something like that to save you some time and sim the rest, that's certainly something you can do. Although if you're a real control freak and you want to make sure you have total impact on your team, then of course you're going to want to play every game. Now, yet another thing you could do, instead of playing the entire games when you play, you could just decide to use the Simcast feature to sim the game to a certain point, like the beginning of the 4th quarter, and then just play the 4th quarter of every game. Sometimes people play just the 1st quarter. Sometimes they play just if their team falls behind. So you could decide how you wanted to do it, but simming part of the game is also an option, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. And you can always jump in at any time that you wanted to if you wanted to have control of that particular game and see if you could maybe get a different outcome than what it looks like you're going to get. And then another thing you could do if you wanted is just to play as one player on player lock, and then you'd only be playing the minutes that player actually played. So this, each game would be a little bit shorter. And of course, if that player was injured, you wouldn't play then. I did a video on how to do that. It's a My Career and a MyLeague file. I'll put a link to that up in the corner if you want to watch it. But it's an option to kind of get through your seasons maybe a little bit faster if it's something that you wanted to do. All right, so there's some ideas on how many games you should play in your MyLeague files versus how many games you should sim. What I would do is try and pick one of those methods to have some sort of structure to deciding how many games you're going to play and how many you're going to sim in your file. And I'd also try and do it consistently from season to season. If it were up to me, what I like to do is play every single game. There's nothing more fun than developing your team over the course of a long, grinding season. And also, you get to see the players in action multiple times. So instead of just names in a box score, they develop a playing personality that you get to learn over time. So let me know in the comments what you do, what you suggest, and how you go about deciding whether to play the games in your MyLeague files and whether you sim them and what kind of strategy you take, so that anybody watches this video, they'll have some other ideas in addition to the ones that I've provided. All right, so I'm Coach 2K. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the court in the next video.